Tonight is Tesla, the Shvat, Hatashin Samech Tes. We're on a good design of the shop's Samech Tes.
So we saw that the Ayin Aleph, the Ayin of the Yesh Amiti, is not Ayin, it's not Shaykh to be a Mokeh LaYesh, and therefore the Yesh is Ein Tefes Mokim Klal L'Kabei. And we saw that even that's a filo, according to the Shita or the tzad that we mentioned earlier, that it could be called a mokeh klali. We could say there was a union from a very detached madrega of klal gabi prat in the Ayin Aleph. Bedugma to what we saw in the Koyach HaTzameach, the ha'ora Aleph, ha'aleph of the Koyach HaTzameach ha'atzmi. We also called that a union from a mokeh klali. But we saw it was a mokeh only in the sense that it would give rise to the possibility of there to be a infant smicha gashmiyas, ultimately, or not that there would be a possibility of smicha gashmiyas from that Ayin Aleph itself. In other words, at the Gabi, the Ayin Aleph to the infant smicha gashmiyas would be completely mufrach, it wouldn't be shaya klal. We brought the dugma from the Shem Havaya. וכמוי השם הוויה שאם יוסי לושן מהווה או לושן מהווה בכל מוקים אין שום מוקר ליש כלל וכנזכר ליל כמו שכוסו במוקים אחר. So we saw that the pshat is that Havaya is loshen mahava. Yud K Vov K. The Klal is a very mystifying combination of whatever may be the word there, or there might be some shurish, the milah. It's a mystifying combination of it. However, the shurish of Havaya is the word hoveh, which means to be or to make be in this particular case. And Yud K Vov K is like a intermediate of the pi'ula of making. A continuation of the pool of making being. So if the name of the Shem Havaya is the emes, the word Mahave, then the Shem Havaya should be the Mokeh of the Tema Aishavas of the elements. And yet we see at the beginning of the Torah, Bereshis Boro Elikim Eis HaShamayim V'Ha'aretz. And it's only later that we, at the end of the whole Sheishi Shemay Bereshis, that he mentions the word Havaya together with the word Elokim. And he says, B'yoyim broi Havaya Elokim Eretz V'Sho Moyim. That's like summing up the whole Bria, Zeh Toildes, Shemayim V'Oretz, B'yoyim Hibarom, on the day they were created, B'yoyim Aseis Havaya Elokim Eretz V'Sho Shemayim. Apart from that, B'Klolos Abri, we don't find the word Havaya. And yet, nonetheless, this Shem Havaya is a Loshen Mahave, which means to bring about. So therefore, the teretz, B'Ktzora, which appears here, is that albeit it's a word meaning bringing into being, Mikol Mokim, in that Madrega, what the Shem Havaya represents, Ein Shom Mokeh L'Yesh Klal, even though it's the infant Shem Havaya. So that's a Torah's beer. If it's an infant Shem Havaya, then how can we use such an expression? Ein shom mokeh l'yesh klal. You'd say that it's not really directly involved in the Yisavas. It's a higher Inyan in the Yisavas. And the Shem Elokim, the Yisavas b'puyal, we could say. Why do we say Ein shom mokeh l'yesh klal? Even though the Shem Havaya is Loshen Mahave. And Koshalema that would be Machalik here in two Madregas of the Shemavaya. Shemavaya, Yoter Korov Elaniva, Shemavaya, or Yoter Lamaila. No, Shemavaya is Tam, Lochera. So that's Aldera what we say every day in davening. Lochera, we can say that the view is that every day in davening, in the Psuche de Zimra, we say, Yahallo Hashem Hashem, Lahallo Hashem Havaya, Ki hu tzivo v'nivro. It's at the beginning of the Mizmor Halos Hashem and Hashemayim. Yeah, we use that expression. Somebody's got a siddur, I can even show it. Any siddurim here?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello, tell us one siddurim that you, because you see it yourself. I just want to show it to others. Anyway, here you have it in... Hallelujah, Hashem Hashem, Hashem Havaya, Ki hu tzivo v'nivro. He commanded, literally, and they came about, or they were created. Lo hu tziva v'bara, elo hu tzivo v'nivro, and they just came about. So it's mavur in many Jewish exodus that is very maduya, the fact that that's written in like a passive automatic term at the end of the verse, that the Shemavaya, albeit Loshem Mahave, but it's so moved out from the actual Yisavas before Yal, that the Yisavas before was described as something that happens miyatzmei. Hu tzivo, he just created, he just said, and v'nivro, it just happened mi'elo or miyatzmei. Kilo that happened on its own, as it were. Which tends to, Chashon to say that something happened on its own. Ella, the relationship of Hashem Havaya with that Isavas is so distant that it happened on its own, even though the Hashem Havaya is really the Mokir. So that's what we're trying to say here. The Emes of Mahava is the Ayin HaBeis. The Ayin HaAleph is Kilu Mokir Kloli Al Inyan HaIsavas. It ever has a Shaykh, and it's like the Mokir Amiti. Im lo zen nimtzu mi'atzmas, like the Pirush HaBeis, then it wouldn't be Shaykh the whole Isavas. Maybe we say even a little bit more on Maduyak than that, and that's Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe in Perek Memches in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe says that there's like two inyanim in the Inyan HaYesh. And he says that there's the Etzem Yesh Kamoishuhu, how that comes about, Mi'alo level in Elokus, which is Mahava the Yesh, what he calls over there the Era Pnimi, or the Era Tzumtzum. And then there's the Era Seiviv Kolam, the Era which is moved down Mia Oilamas and Seiviv Kol Oilamas. And he says that is really the Mahave Hoa Amiti. He says that the Emes, the Koyach HaYisavas, is from the Seiviv. And the Savas B'derech Pnim is only Kilo Inyan Proti Le'achri what the Etzem Savas has been made by the Sevi. Let's go from verstehen, what does that actually Savas imply? To the coming about of the Nevroim and the Matthias V'chulu. Of all Parim, as I state, the Alter Rebbe is machalik there between two levels in the hierarchy when I get to the Etzem Savas or the Nevroim. He says that the Ika HaMahave is the Araseiv Kolomin. That's straight out the Lashon. Ika HaMahave is the Araseiv. Meaning that if it weren't for the Etzem Yechoilis of the Eibishter, Lahavish Yesh Mi'ayin, his Etzem ability to create Yesh Mi'ayin, Mitzad Atzmusay, Mitzad the Era Atzmus, which is the Araseiv, then it wouldn't be anything. That's the Ika HaMahave. That's what gives rise to the whole possibility of the Yeshavit. Or later there's a further derivation through all sorts of inyanim of tzimtzum, and there's a further kirub, elayesh, and that gives rise to the etzem misavis papuyo and the slabshas of the hierarchy inside the nivra. Again, the isavis mitzat sevi were not so much nimta, but his slabshas elakilo, it's a min tzibur, it causes him to be. That's what we suggest here in the Shema Vaya is the Emes Mahave. Please that that's the Koyach Shema Atzmi. That's Mara Atzmi, they'd say. However, to actually bring about the Yesh Papoyo, there's a further in which is the Ayin HaBei. And that's what we could suggest that he means in the brackets. Being there's a gile achmi, ain't sham moker elayesh. But just the etzim yechilas, the etzim ability of that to give forth the other yesh.
But I remember that we said a long time ago when we were learning Samech Vav that there was like a Shem Elokim in the Atzmos that was like.
So it could be we met up with something of that nature, but we'd need to look up carefully the text there and see to what we were referring. You understand? Generally speaking, the Shem Elokim is only the Helem which brings about the Oyer Mutzumtzum, which can be Mahavad and Nivra, but generally speaking. The Alter brings in the Kuti Torah in a place that there's a Shem Elokim which is Mare al Madregas Harvey Yesa Gavoyas, means maybe even higher than the Shem Havaya. Well, it's a very mafurative partistic and that's really the Shem Havaya anyway. It's called the Shem Havaya Benikud Elokim. It's like how do you call it, a stalwars of the Shem Havaya with the Shem Elokim together. And that's a much higher madrega. That could be what we're referring to over there. You follow? Well, the Stam Shem Elokim is ain't a way you could say. Except, well, maybe what you're referring to is what we had over there in Pasha Vayetze. Well, we didn't actually learn Pasha Vayetze. But it's written over there, V'hoyo Havaya li lo Elokim. That's maybe what we meant. That he came to such a high madrega that even the Shem Havaya was like a Shem Elokim. Maybe that's what you're referring to. However, says the Rebbe, that that's the union of the Shem Havaya. Similarly it is in the Ayin Ha'alev, she'ein shom moker layesh, there's no moker for yesh in that madrega. Mamela ein hayesh tefus mokim klau, therefore the yesh has absolutely no tefisas mokim legabi the Ayin Ha'alev. I repeated that sentence because we owe ourselves a chayda. We're going to learn the Hagah at the bottom, which we didn't do in the previous class. But nobody even bothered to put up his finger to say, wait a minute, maybe you forgot the Hagah. So once again, the Shaila is, anyway, let's leave the Shailas behind and we'll go into the Hagah. So the Rebbe says that that's Legavi the Ayin Ha'alev, that the Yesh has no tefisas mokim. It has no erech or significance Legavi the Ayin Ha'alev. So now we're going to say a Chiddush, Begam Mavur b'mokim acher, Ta'ahilu b'pchinas Ayin shalayesh ta'oilamas. In other words, the Ayin Ha'beis. The Ayin which is already shy to the Oilamas, Hini matzad etzem ha'ayin, Savas b'pchinas richuk. The Savas is in a form of tremendous distance. V'hainu, mashe niseira barotzen liyesh b'pchinas yesh. Avoin nispoel nitfas unispoel barotzen zeh. V'chamesh kosev mizeh bedrush yontav shel Rosh Hashanah Reish Samavov b'dibo amatru odom ki yeh. We didn't get that far. We didn't learn. Maybe you guys are lucky. Very, one of the really shver maimonim in Samavov. Anyway, says the Rebbe, im kain ein hayesh teifas mokim. The yesh is not teifas mokim, even legabi the ayin habeis. We've been saying the whole time that the yesh is teifas mokim. So now he says that the emes is that even legabi the ayin habeis, it's not teifas mokim. So what is the suggestion? So this is like a sort of a kasha and a terror. It's all wound into the lashon here. What is the suggestion or the svara to say that should be teifas mokim, legabi ayin eloki, because the ayin eloki has come down b'pchinas kiruv, and it's made itself a mokir for that. Yeah, as if Kabi Ochel the Eibush has done that, then it's kiruv that he wants to have himself molded, as you might say, on a lower level of gilui, in order that he should be able to be mahava that particular inyan. The Nivroim in Oilamas Biyah, in Oilamas, so that means that he's been miskarev to them. If he's been miskarev to them, then he's, out of word, he's made a certain relationship between that Inyan Elikus and the Nivra. As in Cain, the Nivra is like close to it, and therefore it has a Tfisas Mokim, particularly that all the Tzimtzumim were made in order to get to that goal. As in Cain, we've given a certain importance and ultimate significance to the air. So that's what we've been assuming maybe up till now. Now the Rebbe says here he said that it's not the case that even Lagabi that yesh or the Elamas mitzad the etzem ayin, then it's an even from Richok. It's also beli tvisas mokim and beli erah. How can that be? So he said, because how did that come about? How can we have an ayin which is be'erah to the nivra through the rotzen, the Abish's will? The Abish had a will that he should go down on to such a level which would produce the yesh nivra, and therefore that rotzen brought him close to the yesh nivra. I mean, moving that everything milmaila goes with a will, and so the old expression has it, wherever your will is, that's where you are. As if the Eibush went down with his will into that level, and there's a certain kiruv between the two, and that's like the more expression of the shaila, because the inyan of the rotzen is in such a level that it wants that thing to be in a zah or even of a nivra. Imkain, and there's some. If you want it that way, that means you're miskara to it, and it means it's got a certain significance lagabi you. So the Rebbe L'choira follows that there is a certain tfisas mokim on that level. He said, no, even on that level where the rotzen has come down, he said, even there, it's also even show richuk. Why? He said, because even though the truth is that he became aroused in a rotzen, that there should be the inif and yesh, well, here is the teretz. Aval eino nitfas umispoel barotzen ze, and that's what he's mother over there in that mimer from the Reish Samavah. In other words, we have to be mavdil, we have to differ between rotzen how it is in human terms and rotzen how it is in Elikus. Even how rotzen has come down, but Derek Yurida Vagilui towards a certain, what looks to be a certain direct relationship between the rotzen and the goal that it was aiming at. He said, however, when you say rotzen, then you mean a certain ispilus of the nefesh. That you've been affected by that and you're involved, and that's why you want it. And when you get it, there's a certain fulfillment, what's called the fulfillment of the rotzen, milui haratzon, what you might call satisfaction. Zufriedenkeit, how do they say, pleasure, nachas, v'chulu, nachas which are the milieu of your will. So the Rebbe, you can't say that in Elikus. You can't say that if the Eibishter wanted something, he only wanted it one way. A Pirush, he wanted that should be Lagabi the Nivroim, or he wanted it because that's the ultimate tachlis, or Lagabi hu, Lagabi the Nivroim. Maybe even Lagabi him he has a certain tachlis, but he's not mispoil in that. It doesn't really in any way affect him. And you can't really say that the rotzen is a form of a nachas ruach or a milui to the Eibishter. What do we do say? We say nachas ruach l'fonei shamati v'naseh toini, and we say all sorts of inyanim that you're mamale Hashem's will and all sorts of gewaldige Sachen. So what is the biur? The biur is that gufa is the rotzen. He wants, kaviyah, he should have that gufa is what he wanted, and he was, he allows, and he gives a reshus, and that's what we say, the inyan for reshus. Reshus means possibility or permission that should be. And therefore the Zohar Kodesh says that the first rotzen of the Eibush is called hulamanasa. Bareish hulamanasa de malka gorif kalifu b'tehirui ilo. That's how the Zohar begins. The actual text of the Zohar begins with them losh. So the inyan from hulamanasa means reshus, permission or letting happen. In other words, that the Eibush doesn't have a will, he just lets his will happen. He let it be. So therefore the wills that we talk about in the Eibush are not b'derech pilot by a mensch. That's the way it is. He gets all bound up emotionally in his will, and therefore it gives him back what you might call a feedback of emotion. And that was the Rebbe, even though the will has come down, that's only Lekavi Deyesh, or not Lekavi Deyesh, he's not mispoil me, or he has no, what you might call, reaction to that Rotzen Klal. However, even though the Rotzen came down, really it's a from Richel Petachasa. He's really distant from that Yesh Aniva, even though he's come down Bekirov Elo, because the actual making of the Yesh Aniva is not Goyim, or the actual Gilu or Milui of that will doesn't cause any Ispilus in Elikus Klal. That's what he says. Eino Nitfas, he's not grasped, or he's not affected or emotionally fulfilled by that Rotzen. And that's what he's Mavai over there in that famous verse in Samfah. But Diva Mas Rodem Ki Yeh, in Pasha Tazriya, Ki Yeh Besore, in the Negoyim and so on. Imke, says the Rebbe, Ein Yesh Tevas, Makif, even though he's been Yored or miscarried to the Yesh, really the Yesh is not Tevas any Makif, because there's no involvement there. However, on the one hand he's Korev, and on the one hand he's Petachas Harichu. But Kol Shekain, how much more so? Because Ayin Shal Yeshu Amiti, that's in the Ayin Shal the Yesh. Aniva, the second Ayin, which is already Miskarev to the Yesh. How much more so in the Ayin of the Yesh or Amiti, the Ayin Ha'alef, Gam Shubchinus Makir Kloli. I feel according to the Shitta that we're talking now, that Al-Chaponimi is a form of Klal. We call Mokim, in a Teifus Mokim Klal. The Yesh is not Teifus any Mokim at all, like Abidak Madrega. How much more so? If I feel where it's Mamish Miskarev, listen, obviously say, it's not going to many, how much more so in that level. From that we see that the purpose of the Agora is to show just how great the distance of the Ayin Aleph is. Afilu will say, according to the first opinion, that he is some sort of Mokir Kloli, albeit in a very mushatik way. And therefore we bring, Kal V'choyma, that we say, Afilu in the Ayin Abayz, where it seems that he is Miskarev. Even there is no real Kiruv, on the contrary, it's B'tachas Sarkov. How much more so the Ayin Aleph, that the Klal there is completely and utterly moved altogether. How much more so that there's no real pilus or kiruv or involvement klalu. Well, that's the whole purpose of that goes to show us that even in this madregas called kal v'chayma, that there's no real kesher even from the ayin base. It's a kal v'chayma. For now we see that if we examine carefully when it's beinain, then we see that in that inyan of Isavas yesh min ha'ayin, even from the level of the Ayin base, then there are like two, what you might call, contrasting nuances. On the one hand, we have to say that the Ayin is miskarev to the Yesh, and as to want that in it, there should be the Yesh, and wanting is a kiruv, rotzen is a kiruv elodor. And that's what we say, that if the Ayin Eloki is not found in the Yesh Tomid, and it's not miskarev to bring him about, then he will never be there. On the other hand, we say that the Yin for Yesh Mi'ayin is B'tachas HaRichuk, because if it were in from Emes Kiruv, and it were to be felt, the Kiruv were to be felt by the Nivra, then the Nivra would be bottled B'tachas HaBitl, and he would be in an Eiv Yesh Mi'ayin. So therefore, on the one hand, there has to be a Shkarvus, Amitius, Elayesh. On the other hand, that Kiruv is not felt in the Yesh Klau, because B'emes, even that Kiruv is B'emes HaRichuk. And therefore, you can pose in Yonim Kiruv, the Seiserim, or Seiserim Cholila, contrasting one day, on the one hand, a Kiruv, or that Kiruv Gufa is itself Arichuk. Therefore, the Yesh is able to be on the one hand Mishava, because you have to be Makarev to be Mahava him. On the other hand, he's B'tachas HaHeder HaErech V'Arichuk Legamri from that's the two famous contrasting aspects or factors in the Klolos HaMusik of Yesh Mi'ayin. The two famous inyonim, they brought down in many drushim. We have them in that Hagua, brought out very clearly on the one hand of Rots and Lekarev, and yet on the other hand the Tachlis Aril. And remember, now we go further. ובפרט, לפי מה שנסבור לעיל, יש למה שאין הבחינס מוקר כללי גם כן. Like we saw yesterday at the end of the Shia, that according to the second nuance that we had earlier, just on the other page, or the page before, that it's not even a mokir, you can't even really call the Yesha, the Ein Ha'alev, a mokir klali even, then how much more so that there's absolutely no tefisas mokim of the Yesh Lagabi that ayin. ובפרט, יש להם שאין הבחיס מוקר כללי גם כן, ונקרא מוקר למוקר, we saw it's called, however, a mokir למוקר, only rak bozeh shehu nimtza. Only the fact that it's nimtza, or nimshach, mi'atzmas, it started off a whole process, in that it's called a mokir to a mokir. But not that it really is a mokir in the real sense. Choseh, ubchinas ha'ayin shel ha'yeshu amiti, shehu yeh mi'ein ha'etzem. As we saw, it's gotten itself certain inyonim, which are giluim ikriim from the etzem. I'm sorry, where are we? Yesh amiti shu b'chinas me'ein ha'etzem the b'chinas yesh amiti. It's me'ein ha'etzem of the yesh amiti. V'hainu shu b'chinas pshitas, that's one of the inyon of the yesh amiti. U'b'chinas havdolas ha'erech mi oilamez. In other words, we've stressed all the way through that wherever you have pshitas, then that is shayl the concept of matzias. And therefore, since it's a matzias, it's a pshitas, it can't possibly be a emes or mokeh, because a mokeh has to be some form of matzias kosher. And therefore, since it's pshitas, then it's havdolas ha'erech, it's not be'erech to be shayach to oilamet. Ve'enam teisi mokim, and therefore they're not teifas mokim, shayach loima, shahen kaloicha, shivei. And since they not teifas any mokim, then it's shayach to say the lashon loicha, shivei. And therefore all the inyonim, even the Elam say, ki elyonim odem kaloicha, shivei mamish, legabi that level of the ayin ha. Our is a beginners ayin abeis, which is already the ayin which is korev al, which we just brought him down in the Haggadah. She'ena beginners devekis bimkoiroi. He's not mamish in devekis bimkoiroi because he undergoes the in of the tzimtzum, and tzimtzum is already like a hefsek between him and his moker. And therefore he doesn't have the mila of me'ein makoiroi. He doesn't have the not of peshitas and not of havdolas ha'erech. Ki im yesh lo shayches el ha'elamas. He does have a certain nearness or appropriateness to them. V'shayach shom madreges b'chinas yischalkes protiim. Shahein mekoiriyim l'chol ha'protiim shenis havu. He said it's already shayat there, ainin of yischalkes protiim. Just that even those protiim are only mekoiriyim. They're not mamish protiim in the real sense. They're only mekoiriyim. But they're still in for protim, just that each prat is like a general prat, like Gabi, a whole series of minute pratim which come out in the actual Hisavet. And that we could say is al derech, where we find beneged to the level of ach, what we call Adam Kadmai, well that's the first gilui after the Tzimtzum Rishain, that we say over there that everything is found in ach. All the protein, and all the data and all the anonym that ever going to be and ever were and ever this, everything is nimta ba'ak, but we say it's all in a state of pshitas for heder hama siyas. But we say that on the other hand, it is there in a way. Mashenkin into Yoshelef now, we can't say that. So how can you have a cake and have it too? How can you say it's there and it's not there? And it teaches that even the pratim, how they are in Akka, all mudolim from any real materials, and they're only a mokir rochik to other much more detailed pratim which come out with a whole Seder in the union from Seder Ishtausva. And therefore we say that all the details of all the doiros are niskorim shom b'skiro achas. In other words, if you say that all the pratim are there, then they're there. But if you say they're all near b'skiro achas, it means like one survey, one general cook, as you might say. Then how can you look at one general look at 6,000 years, Shitaufish was talking that that's a matzah where all the pratim are there, but they're not really a state of matzias, and they're like general states of pratim which are going to become, and that's what happened. That's the Taich's man. After you get a Yerida into a Kudim and later into a safe Ilam Achilas, then you get to his Chascholas in Yanazman. Then all those details break up into a whole series of, how do you call it, consecutive details, one following the other. Mashikin over there, they're in a state of Makoiriyim, they're all together, Mamish, and that's the Loshen Skira Achas. The Pshat, it's like one general serve. And if says the Rebbe, that's the Chiddush in the Aina base, that he's already got that Makoiriyim, Kloliyim, Elinian Pratim, which means that the Pratim are there in a very high general way. Akamish Mokim Acher Be'inyan Shebeshem Elokim Nema Elokim Kedoshim Loshen Rabim. That's well known that the Shem Elokim is really a plural word. And the Loshen Elokim Kedoshim is a Loshen in a Novi, it's not a Loshen in the Torah. That's either, I think it's in Yirmiyahu, it's the Loshen Ki Hu Elokim Kedoshim. That he's a holy Eibishter. We use over there the expression Elokim Kedoy, Kedoshim. That's a Loshen in Nach, not in the Torah. That's a way of describing the Shem Elokim, because the Indian Atzmiyas, the Indian word Elokim is a plural word. That's what that usage of that adjective Kedoshim indicates to us, that the real Loshen of Elokim, the Etzem Mila Elokim, is really a Rabbim. It's a plural word. And that was the word Taich. Ainin and Elokus is a plural. Elokus is Taklisa. Ha'achtas, Ela De'ina from Shem Elokim, what is the Mokir of the Yisavas Bakoyo, as we said. Well, that is the Ayin Mamish of the Yesh Hanivra. That's already got in itself the Indian from Pratim, but we can't possibly say in Shem Elokim Pratim Mamish, Ela Pratim Mekoyiriyim, and Pratim Klulim, in a higher Klolistic, even what from them goes out, the derivation of the Pratim into consecutive details, one after the other, or one besmicha to the other, one bekesher with the other, Mashenkin in the Shem Elokim, they're there, but they're in a state of Heder HaProtias, compared to how they are when they come out Alidei Kilo. And the Father, from Shem Elokim, is once again a further state of Hester, by hiding the Peshitas, or relative Peshitas, not complete Peshitas by any means, or by hiding that relative Peshitas that there is in the infant Elokus Mitzadatzme, the Shem Elokim, and then is able to be, as it were, partly to bring out into detail, Bereshis Boro, Elokim Eis HaShamayim VeEis HaOretz is already Shamayim VeOretz, like Rashi brings over there, it's brought down in the Medrash, that Eis HaOretz l'Rabbis, yes, Tzvoeya Ve'es HaShamayim l'Rabbis Tzvoeya. That includes all the Tzva Shamayim and the Tzva HaOretz, that even the Etzem Misavos itself was also not even Klali B'tchila, and then it's later, the Mislavia, the Mishtauser into Pratia. That's the view when you get to the Ayin base. Harei, like Abi Madregazu, Oilamas Teifsim Mokri. They have a certain place or a certain pieces, Mokri meaning a certain importance or erech or state of being. Since that's the mokir which actually brings them into being, therefore they have a certain, because the whole inyan of the relationship of a mokir to the thing which brings it about, as we said earlier, that's like one higher Metzias, Legabia, a lower and more detailed Metzias. But as we pointed out, every mokir must already have in itself a certain state of Metzias. And therefore another Metzias which is Mishkala from that mokir is also a Begeda Ha Metzias, and therefore they have a certain error, one to the Ade. They have a certain closeness, one to the other. What we're going to see as we go along, that we have to modify that somewhat, because that implies the concept of kiruv that we just saw. And we're going to see that in the Yesh Mi'ayin there also has to be the Inyan from Rucha, as we saw in the Hagua. But we'll sort of work to that in another few sentences as we go along. So he says that that's the Inyan of Tfisas Mokim, that there's Al-Chaponim, because there is the desire and the Yerida to bring about a Dover Proti from a Mokir Kloli, at Afar, there's a certain Tfisas Mokim, a certain erech or state of significance one to the other. Ve'im kein, Iyef shaloima shehein kalecha shiva. And therefore, legabi that ayin abeis, and legabi the etzem shem elokim atzmai, you can't really say that they are kalecha shiva. In other words, where are they kalecha shiva? Only legabi the shema havaya. In the etzem ayin ha'alef, there we can say, because there was only kiuchi vov and nivra saying what beklarein was a erech or tfisas mokim. Over in the level which has already been the rotten lahaves beisom, then there they do have a certain significance. Now then, if they're not being from Babbalech Hashiva, Cholila to say that they're mamish Matzias, and therefore he says, Kiim begins bittul hayesh le vada. Das ist sicher that they're betelim. No, then it's a bittul hayesh, it's a relative bittul, not an absolute bittul, not a bittul be'etzem ha Matzias. In other words, that they sense that they're there. There's already a certain feeling of a being on the part of these inyanim, and that's the taish yesh. In that kufa, they hear that they're betelim. They feel that there's something, or they know that there's a mokir, and they're aware of the mokir, and therefore they give away themselves in an open from bittul to that mokir, of a feeling from the beginning that they are already something. That's a bittul, and we're going to see as we go along, we haven't finished with bittul hayesh yet, we're going to see that bittul hayesh has got miles to it. There's EFSHA, completely to what you might call write off bittul hayesh. There's certain great miles in the etzem avodah of bittul hayesh. However, in the etzem eichus, what you might call the etzem quality or pnimius of the bittul, then ein lezeh to bittul b'metzias mamis. Of all the elements are betelim legabi the ayin ha'alef, what they're loy chashivei mami. So that was it. That's the difference. The two bituli. That's a bittul amiti. The roim legabi the ayin ha'alef and legabi the ayin ha'beis. It's only a bittul ha-yei v'ainu. Shenira shom eik. What does it mean bittul hayesh? What does that mean? So he says a taich that shom, meaning over there in the nivra, how he is already in the oilamas, eik sheha ika hu ha-koyach eliki ha-mahava machayas nivra. How the ikar, the principle, is the koyach eliki ha-machayas es ha-nivra. So we should do it. What it means is the ika is the chayas ha-machayas ha-nivra. That would make bittul b'metzias. I mean, if you work out that your whole chayes, your whole is only the koyach eliki mahave, then that leads to bittul b'metzias, bittul amiti, k'mavui and shara yichud. I mean, that's how he begins. The whole shara yichud, and then perek bayis and gimel, it gets very high pitched. We say it's mamish bittul b'metzias, ayin v'efes, chayes up to was. What is it from bittul hayesh here? So what we have to say is that in oilamas and mitzad nivroim mitzad atzmo, they take a note that there's a chayes eliki in them, And they take another, believe Chais Eloki, it's not shayt that they have any Matthias. Aber, the Hargosha of their Matthias is Kilo Mizgaba also. Yet you find a nature with that. As we have to say, a mensch, to use the expression, a mensch leapt off a limb, he leapt off a guten Tag, as they say. He has a good, good, he enjoys his day, a gesundheit. Aber, what is it? He feels himself to be a Matthias. I ask him what is, who are you, or what are you doing here? They say, there's a Chayes Eloki, which is Machayim, is Mahavim, mit alle gute Sachen. Aber so, he realizes that to be the case, but he says, that's a dike. That's the principle. I wouldn't be here, but I am here. So in other words, that in the inner of the Eilamas, it's only a yediyah that the koach hamahava is a ike. In other words, there's a ike and a tofel. Over the emes is that there's no tofel either. Ain't tofel, ain't shum dover. So that's what so here the Lashon is very interesting. He says that he's margish over there in the yesh of the Eilamas that the Ike is the Koach Eloki and Mahavim Machayis Aniva. Only the Ike, not that it's the whole material Bila Deza Einoid no. He feels that believes that I wouldn't be anything as a father. That's a Ike. Although I am what I am. It's a purpose for us to talk about. And even more than that, he's prepared to admit that the mensch has to be mischadish tomid mim koiroi. As we say, mischadish beturi b'chol yem tomid ma'aseh. He says that there has to be the koyach of the mahave inside the mishaveh, but not that it has to be mischadish tomid mim koiroi. It has to all the time be mischadish from the mokeh. Be'im lo it is battle matziyusay. It's all matziyus will then take a big battle b'ma. But if it wasn't nimtzo and mischadish tomid inside the nivra, be'im kein ena matziyus dover le'atzmei. Yeah, he said, he's not a Matthias Doverle, actually, he's not really a thing on his own, he's dependent in something else. In other words, that he's bottled to that thing. So I thought the shadow was it has to be inside him, and it has to be mischadish tomid mim koiroi. What do you do? I could just say, that there has to be the koyach ha'mahave inside the misha. Since he's a yesh minoi, and ain't kol sibo or tam why he should be there. I mean, there's no previous state which leads to him. It's only the etzim koyach ad the eibster lahav is yesh minoi. And if it comes to it, without the iron, there's no yesh. Without the iron's not there. There's no yesh. Therefore, it has to be the presence of the ayin b'toich. What it has to be present in a za'av and should treat him lishchadish tomid mim koirei. What do you do? We don't have tomid mishchadish tomid mim koirei. L'chor, I could say that the Abish wanted the world to be very good sheet alfei shnin. So the fair. The aim is to put a koyach eloki into all the nevroim, that he realized it, he reckoned it out in such a way that it'll hold for 6,000 years, and then after that anyway it's going to retreat from it and something else is going to be. As the Abish, might say, he said to himself, well, we'll work it out when that comes, when it'll be the end of the 6,000 years, we'll have to be Mishan of the situation, we'll work it out, what we'll do further. Over for the 6,000 years, to have an alma, he put a koyach eloki into the inn and it's halter. Why do you have to say no? The koyach eloki is inside and it's mishchadish b'kol regem here. And that's what we say, machadish b'tui b'kol yim tomid ma'aseh. Ma'aseh b'reishit. Every moment it's mishchadish. Machadish b'tui b'kol. Every moment he's machadish from the mocker. Wie is dat doen? Good question. So there's a very famous bureau there in Amman for the Rebbe Nishmas Eden in Tofrei Samech in Chanukah, Tofrei Samech. But the embassy is that this thing is dealt with in the middle of Rebbe and Kama Mekemis in Tzilas, Bahava Mekemis. A very sort of, condensed and well-ordered bureaus in that manner that I mentioned in Bekofei Bekislev Tofrei Samech. And very Bekitza, there's about 3 different bureaus given over there. Lamas are Tzarich because there. So what we'll do is maybe choose one of them, and that'll be enough in order to be, machbit too heavily on the minds and the cups of the Mekablims, particularly that they're busy so much with all the other inyanim, kolayim, kulay, aren't they? The Mishiageya and all many inyanim in Torah and in Tefillah. The Rebbe is masber over there according to one of the burim, and that is, we find an interesting shaila that's written that the Tzvar HaShamayim is kayomin, the Rambam is the Tzvar HaShamayim are kayomin be'ish, olei b'min. They're kayomin every particular detail, it's based on the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says that chazokim kiyim hiborim, that the heavenly bodies are strong as the day that they were. They're exactly the same as the day they were brought about. They state in the Yerushalmi, in Sekta Brach. So, Mashenkin, the Tzvar HaOretz, they're kayomin only in what's called the species, but not in the particular. The species never finish, but each species, the individual pratim in each species, they die out after a certain while. But the heavenly bodies are mamish k'moi shahim. Bli shinut. And mamela asot ha'shalavi kandal zayin. Anything which is brought about, the Rambam says a klal, is a dover mugbal. All the tzvar shemayim, they're all mugbalim. So he said every dover mugbal is what's called a hoiveve nifsad. Here today and gone to Hoiva Nifsad means that it's all the time deteriorating, it's all the time gradually shvaching up. Because it's a Dover Mugbal, it can't hold out forever. It's Be'etzim Mehusa, a Dover Mugbal. Therefore it must be Hoiva Nifsad. And in the Tzvar HaOretz, we see that peculiar, everything that they call it, the Rabbeinu Bechaye writes in Parsha Vayikra. The Rabbeinu B'chai says that from the moment the child is born, it's already beginning to disintegrate. I mean, maybe the word disintegrate is a bit too heavy. It's beginning to gradually, how he call it, oxidize or something in a very, very tremendously, delicate way. It's already beginning to waste away. So, a very interesting Musa Haskel. But you might think you're a great big Matthias, or the Rebbeinu B'chai says you're wasting it. However, it comes out of he said that everything is a hoiveve manivsa. The heavenly bodies, they should be a hoiveve manivsa. The way it takes it from the moment 6,000 years, they're exactly the same as the burger they were. It says that we see, and the same with the Tzvar HaOretz in the general min. The general min just keeps going, even though the details of the min, they pass away after a certain time. But the min is not hoiva v'nifsad. We do find certain minim that after Sheshes and braces they're not there. So they state in the Medrash that the Eibishter took them and he hid them away. For example, the Levi Yosef. Rashi brings it over there. The Eibishter took to Levi Yosef and he's kept it to Yosef. Oh, you're not going to bring it back. Bisman Agula Chulu. For the time being, therefore we don't have the Levi. We don't have the Levi Yosef. Well, not that the Levi just faded out. The min doesn't fade out. If it disappears, then that means there's been an interference. And even man can interfere. If he keeps slogging away at a certain min, he might shvach up the possibility of that min to keep going, but that's because he's deliberately interfered with the in. And he has the ability, Rahman in Itlan, Alidei Bechiros, Hisariv Binyonim Kigon Zeh. However, Suffice it to say that that's the union of koyach nitzchias in every part of the bria. There's a koyach nitzchias. And we come to nitzchias in a thing which etzem minyone is mugbal, and mitzad etzem minyone he should be and is hoiveve there are certain drushas which say that even the heavenly bodies also are undergoing certain, you can't say that it's not, and yet the Eibishter never lets it really be noticeable, and it's of no effect like I'll be there, etzem matzias, and they'll be like that ad lahoidor chadosha. We come to us. So the Rebbe is masber over there. That means that in every Indian there's a koyach nitzchi. Sheish laharik b'zeh. I mean, this is a dova nifla, but sheish laharik b'zeh. And the Rebbe brings it. The Rebbe Melech Mashiach. The state of in sichas from the Rebbe. And the Kosh came for Kalvachim and Kamim Miktobo. But the Rebbe says that even the choyma ha'gashmi, even the choyma ha'chumri, is never nifsad legamrei. It never gets lost completely. Ain't the work. And if I remember when I was in England, I was walking once on the street and it was autumn, and all the leaves fall off the trees over there. You walk through up to your ankles in these sort of carpets of leaves, with all these leaves, they cover all the streets and all the footpaths and the hoisted mitzvahs. So if it snows and there's this big slush of leaves and slush and other things, you've got to be very careful where you're walking. You can just turn over on your neck without the slightest, you can just slip or something. And so I was, Ma'iyah Ha'ora, that all those leaves, every one of them, never really gets completely dislodged. I mean, they just lay around, but then they rot, and that becomes some sort of a mud, and that mud goes into the gutter, and then it goes down somewhere else, and then it ends up someplace else, then it gets washed over here, and it ends up in being a mud pile under the sea or something, but it never really, none of those leaves is actually lost. You can't say that it's finished. Ois material. Yeah? I say it is. And I nimmt that the choymer has in itself a certain nitzchias. I say kind of walking laharik b'zeh. Afila, mitzat the ish of the min, not even in the ish ledactic b'zeh. What we say in Siddur is that the proti min hayeh nifsad, we mean that the nifsad b'matiyosum ha'achshovi. And the chiddush at the tzvah ha'shamayim is that even legavi de matiyos ha'achshovi, they're not nifsad. Aber mamish nifsad legamrei gun. Pile plug. But everybody just sits around, looking at me as if we were talking about last week's Christmas, and just a chapelle. Auch upon him.
What about regarding stars that explode and all this?
Shining.
Stars that explode and all kinds of...
So what happens to them is that they split up into all sorts of bodies and pieces of bodies, and they roll over to some other part of the universe, and they end up hanging on to some other star, or they realize what they end up doing, but they never actually become destroyed. You follow?
Yeah. In science, they call the nivchim of chomrim the conservation of mass or matter and energy. The conservation.
I'm sorry.
There's a word for it in science, nitchim of chomrim. There's also a phrase for it in science.
I'm sorry. I didn't care you were saying a scientific word.
Yeah,
very good. I'll come to it. That's an akuta. Says the Rebbe over there that in the tzvah shamayim particularly, come to us that even how they are being mamish nifsa, they're not really. It's like a dover hibuchoy. It come to us that in the yesh there's a koyach nitzchi, which holds him exactly particularly in the tzvah shamayim. So he said that if the oil had cut off from the atmas, they just took a certain oil and put it inside them, then that wouldn't be nikah, because then the koyach itself would gradually be wearing down. It would be nikah, how there's a certain lack of tmedius, even in all the tzvah shamayim and tzvah ha'oret. And you can't title if he's there. Why not? Maybe David can put his whole Kol Yochel into what he gives into the Inyan. That can't be by definition. The Eivshter can't put his aid safe. How it is, only mitzadim, hu levade b'koich of yichelte. He can't put that into something that's going outside himself, b'derech piru. How can he put it in? Only if it remains. B'kesher mitem. That's one of the biurim. That's one of the biurim. He says, in other words, that there has to be the Yischadshus Tomid. And therefore, the Rebbe, first of all, that she the Yesh feels that his whole principality is the hierarchy, and then he also is aware that the Nivra needs to always be renewed. If he knows that if that were to disappear for a reggae, that he would be misbattled, where he's bottled him, why do you say because it's all totally in his Argashos, in Argashos. Yeah, this Kaddish Tomid, im loi, tis battle Matthias, im kein einer Matthias dovele atzmei, veloi kemoi pulas odom, shaliach gomrei hakli, yeah, der Moshel ain't sorich odom, yeah, when a mensch makes a kli, yeah, and the kli is finished and he removes his hands from it, and the kli doesn't need him anymore. Im kein hariu Matthias dovele atzmei. And that's what the Rebbe's mazbah there in Tofrei Samach. He's mazbah that the Nivroim are all the time like the kli b'zmana that the poil is making it, that his hands are on it, and then it can't be what it is until his hands that his hands are on it, then it's totally completely in his hand. And once he removes them, then there's another a kaviyochu, where like always in the Eivshter's hands, he's always making us every morning from the new. He's like the poil holding his hands on the chaymer. Every second we're completely tolerant. Why don't we say that that's that's a very powerful understanding. So whatever we have to say, we'll sum it up in another few minutes, because now he says yes, because we're going to leave a little bit earlier tonight. We want to make this he said, you think it's too windy and cold and rainy and all this sort of business for it? I mean, I don't think that'll matter, will it? The oidzos, Alavaya would be raining. It makes a lot of noise, but it doesn't give a good to it.
It was raining.
You guys don't know. You guys haven't lived here now, so you know what rain is. I mean, that's not rain. I mean, in the old days, it used to pour. You could walk as a floods all over the place. Nowadays, get a little bit of balbati shareg and everybody goes, ooh, this is a great deal of rain. V'oidzos, bitl anivroim she'enam moisifim shum shleimes b'mekoyer hamahavom ki yeshnam klulim boi koidem shenisavu v'gam liachas shenisavu kulu Ishkos bedrush Rosh Yontiv Shel Rosh Hashanah Reis Samach V'ol B'Libo HaMaskor V'Yelef Yish Mibeis Levi V'Kol Zeh Winim Bitl HaYesh Levad Lo Yibchines Bitl B'Meh Ki Legabi Madrega Zu Harayim Al Choponim Tezim Mokim Umetiyes Vakshe B'Teilim Bitl HaYesh Levad. What do you mean with that last piece? That's a very fascinating and detailed inyan, but it could be it's better that we deal with that tomorrow, without getting involved in it. Yet, suffice it to say that we said earlier there are two inyanim in the yesh. One, that there has to be a kiruv on the part of the mahave. On the other hand, that kiruv is kiruv b'tachas arichuk. It's a kiruv, but it's for Arichu. So it's brought down over there, a very fascinating view in that Maimah. And the Rebbe said, when does a thing have a certain, how do you call it, tfisas mokim, there be a tradesman that he makes a kli, for example, because he makes it, and that becomes a dover kil chutz mimenu. And he was poiled that with his koyach hapiula, and that's teifus what we call a shleimus by him. That's moisif in his pu'ula, how do you call it, an afkamina. In other words, he showed the world that he can make that. You know, that thing has a very strong tvisas mokim by him, because it's kilu magala, a certain shleimus, should have believed that his koyach hapu'ula would have produced that, then there wouldn't be that dover nechmad, which is called the kli. And therefore it's teifus is something shleimus l'kavihim. So Rabbi Ismago there in Samavov, an amazing chishu, that you can say that like Abidiyet. Yesh mayim, that there's now a yesh, and that's kilo, never been there before. It's a nayazach, you know. Yesh mayim, we have to say mukhlat. In a chayla say, we have to say that's moisiv, some sort of shleimus, like Abidiyet. The Eibishter, if it's moisif, so the Eibishter, oh, you see those walls, they weren't there before you guys. It's like every the Eibishter, a new thing, a whole big chiddush, never been. Oilemus, Biar, kein Mensch gewesen. Shalom Aleichem. Those Oilemus should be moisif, Ashleimus, like every the Eibishter. But the Rebbe will do, I'm sorry, that the truth is that even though they yesh mi'ayin, and that we'll have to explain, how does that work? Even though they yesh mi'ayin, the truth of the matter is that they were all there beforehand. All those oilamas that they come about now, even the yesh agashmi, all of them have been there before in the age in a much higher state. What do we say over here? Oh no, it's not in some of over. At the beginning, remember the first Maimah, he brings over there that everything, you know, in a certain madrega, in a certain oifen of looking at it, was there in the mokkeh, which brings it about. In other words, that in Olam HaAtzilas, all the Nivroim were there, but they were in a very ruchnistic state. Even in Olam HaBriah, they were there in a very ruchnistic, in a very, very high and much elevated state. And therefore, there's no shleimus like him that they came back at that. That's not a shleimus. They're in me, and in me they're even better than that. You understand? How they? What's for shleimus to do is? Yeah, the Fan said that that the whole so-called apparent shleimus of the Bria is not, because it was all there before. Anyway, but if your aim is called chiddush, not only just because it's bottled, but because it was always there anyway in him in a higher darga, and when he brought it up, that was shum dova. Only that's what he said. That we've now got the two inyonim in the yesh. Oh no, have we got that there's a kilu. There has to be tomid mishchadish mim koire kol hazman. That's one inyan. Yeah. The other inyan is that really it's nothing because it was already there from before. It was all kol in him. That's the state of the richuk. In other words, that there's a kilu, but there's also a richuk, meaning that it's a beklal of no significance because it was already there from before. Even though there's this chadish betumi b'chol yem, this ständig kiruv inside the union, and that's what he says over there on some of at the end. The whole beer, he says that these two bitulim hafuchim zemizeh, avalim tzrichim b'musik so yesh me'ayin. Yeah, that's the Sfarad, they were all there before, that's Richuk. And the Sfarad, Chadish Betuve, that's even for Kilo. And the two Inyonim have to be there in every Yesh. And there's the Kilo of Fachim Zemizeh, over there, the same basic bittul. He said the two opposite ways of looking at the same basic bittul, and that's what he calls it, bittul Yesh. So have a good evening on that, my gentlemen. If you look carefully in the lesson, you'll see that that's the beer. And tomorrow we'll maybe add a few more words about it before standing up another furthering. But this is quite a hemshech, yeah. I think it's things move. They move. As we get from one amazing swallow to the other.